All right, testing. Let's get this show started, right? I want to apologize. Last week, I don't know what was going on. Let's see here. Yeah, last week, my goodness, I don't know what was going on. My microphones were, hold on. My microphones were acting up. My computer was acting up. I guess you say it was a perfect storm of things last month. I don't know, so I want to apologize about that. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, it should be a great show. Last week, I learned a lot, to say the least, from Mr. Mike Vincent. He had me looking at the maps, looking at other videos, explaining things further to me. And I just want to say thank you to him. And tonight, since our last meeting, a few things has been going on. Most notably, the two, I was about to say presidents, but the two, like we've had to turn rulers of North and South Korea, they are starting peaceful talks, and more drama in Syria. So I see we have our other host, Mr. Mike Vincent. Would you like to say hello?
Hey, what's going on, man?
I'm good. How you doing today? How's your day?
It's good so far, man. Just watching the news and making sure everything's up to snuff for us to talk about. And yourself?
Now, it's good. It's good. I saw the video you sent. You sent through the mail, and you're right. It is dry, and you have to be really focused to listen to it, because his dialogue was monochrome. It wasn't too exciting to listen to, but I stuck through it.
Which video are you referring to?
Let me see. The sanctions on Iran. You look at the Western sanctions against Iran versus expected Eastern blowback.
Oh, you're talking about Newsbud.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're professors. They're talking in lecture format. So.
Okay. Wow.
Sounds like that.
He knew what he was talking about,
mm-hmm.
but his delivery was you need a cup of coffee with you.
Yes.
Since last week, Kim Jong-un and I forget the president of South Korea, skipping my mind, they met, and they are now starting peaceful talks. What you think about that?
I think it's good. Only good can come from it. So,
and go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that they've already started the first wave of deliverables for the peace talks. So they've taken down the loudspeakers off the demilitarized zone, the DMZ. That was the first wave, and then the second wave will be to start removing troops away from the border.
Okay. Now, where they met? Where did they meet? It looked kind of weird. Where they met at?
It's called a DMZ. It's called a demilitarized zone. So it's a buffer area in between the North and the South, where there can be some form of dialogue, as well as there's mines set up in between the borders, in between North and South. So if they ever think about running from the South to the North to try to take over, they'll be blown to bits, at least on foot.
Okay.
So that keeps them from being overrun.
Okay, it won't be that easy for them. Okay, smart move. Touche, Kim Jong-un.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was looking at a few videos about it, and Kim Jong-un's he don't change in terms of like his appearance. His hairstyle he got that nice little Korean crew cut going on. I like that.
Right.
I like that, and this little black suit he got going on, and I saw he had they picked out certain people to run aside of his security detail, run aside his car. They saying they picked them out for their looks, athleticism, for their skills. He's serious. I would give him that. He is a serious man.
Well, they have to be serious because of what happened in the past, right? In 1950, United States bombed North Korea back to the Stone Age. They basically bombed every single building that they had and left nothing for the North Koreans to hide under. They kept bombing until there was nothing, until it was basically nothing left other than the dams for the rivers, and that was the next target. It was to bomb the dams so that the rivers would overflow into the city and basically wash the people out and drown them to death.
Mm. Okay. Now, whoever's listening, now you see you got a little context of why this man and his family are so serious in and protect. I guess you say in their mind protecting North Korea. Now, speaking of bombs, the bombing that's still going on and continues to go on since our last talk in our beloved Syria. Oh my goodness. What I want to do tonight is, since last week, as you talk, what I want to do is bring up a map of Syria and give people a visual. Let me see maps. There we go. Give people a visual of what we mean when Syria is just in a bad place geographically. Let's see if I can bring up. Let's see here. Up, wrong button. Bring up this screen share. Okay. Now, yeah. More.
Might need to zoom in.
Okay. Let me see. A little bit more. Okay. You can see the roads now. Yeah, more missile attacks and more planned missile attacks in Syria. And last week, where we left off, what you were speaking about, how, let me zoom out a little bit, how Saudi Arabia, which is to the exact south of Syria, Iraq, which is to the east, Iran more east. You have the United Arab Emirates and this little speck, a little island that's Qatar, then Yemen down here. And you have, it's better if I just zoom out. You have Europe. Everybody knows Europe. Then you have Russia. But in order for these oil-rich countries over here to get their oil to Europe, which Europe wants because they don't want to be dependent on Russia, in order for these oil-rich countries here to get their oil to Europe, they have to go through Syria and Turkey for a more direct approach. If not, they're going to have to go all the way around the Gulf of Aden, the Red Sea, and the Mediterranean, or around the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. So Syria's in a, like we agreed last week, in a pickle. Zoom in. Okay. Yeah, Syria's in a pickle. And the continued airstrikes on Syria is not, in Syria's case, that is, it's not helping their position.
Right, they're very vulnerable.
Because I looked at this map, I'm like, man, this you really cannot go anywhere. It's one of three places, but the other two places, it's just too much money. So yeah, but about the news bud, the news bud. Him turn this off. I went over. I listened to it. I listened to everything, and to be honest, I had to listen to it twice, and I still did not catch, understand everything.
Mhm.
From what I can gather, he was saying that the Iranian rial, RIAL rial, has inflated in recent years. Sometimes to, did he say 6,000 to one or 60 to one?
Due to the sanctions.
Yes, of course, due to the sanctions. And they were even, Iran was even saying that the people who take the money out of the country to arbitrage, to basically take the money out of the country and go to bordering countries or other countries, trade it in to get to get more money back. They are trying to catch those people and I guess put them in jail or something.
It's called capital flight. So you can't do that in the United States, but other countries like Venezuela has the same problem, right? So Venezuela's currency has inflated multitudes because of the sanctions and because of um, the price of the barrel of oil. So
Mm-hmm.
what people have been doing is they, instead of trying to take their money out of the country physically, what they've done is they bought all the um, goods off of the shelf. So your milk and cheese and necessities that you need to survive, and they've taken it out of the country and they've taken it to Colombia and they sold it on the Colombian market and got US dollars in return. So that's how they got their money out of the country. So what's happening in Iran is that they've been trying to do the same exact thing, um, but it's not as successful, right? Because where Iran is geographically, they can only go so many different places.
They can go to presumably they can go to Afghanistan, Turkmenistan,
Well,
Armenia.
it's more about who's going to accept that currency, right? Because there's
Mhm.
sanctions on the country as it is, and those countries that you mentioned, especially Afghanistan, are very U.S. centric and friendly, and from a banking standpoint. So they don't really want the currency either because it doesn't mean anything to them.
Okay. So not only is the country, but their citizens are in another pickle financially.
Right, and how they've survived all this time for the last 35, 40 years with these sanctions on them is they've had to be innovative, right? So they've had to come up with their own engineering and their own agriculture and things like that to make up for the inability to do business outside the country um, from a from a banking standpoint.
Now, how long do you think it's been going on for the last few decades? You said 30 35 years.
Mhm.
How long can the country, uh, in terms of the government, hold out? What,
Depends on
what, go ahead.
it depends how much cash they have in their reserves. Syria, for example, ran out of money in 2015. So their
Mm.
budget, their war budget, and their coffers ran out because they spent a lot of their money fighting the war against the terrorists. So that's when Russia stepped in September 30th of 2015 because Russia knew, or Putin knew, that Syria was going to be tapped out from a money standpoint, and that if they did not step in, that they would be, that the Syrian government would be overrun by terrorists. They didn't have enough money for logistics and as well as weapons and ammunition. So Russia had to step in. If Russia didn't step in, the whole Middle East would be different right now.
Now, that is a chess move on part of Putin because if not Russia, if Syria would have fallen, then they would have been affected in terms of their them being able to sell oil to Europe. Am I not right?
Well, it doesn't have anything to do with the oil, right? In that perspective, Russia has a military base inside Syria because that's their only access to the Mediterranean Sea. Now, Turkey is a NATO partner and one of the main NATO partners. So Turkey's ability to govern the Black Sea, which is the Black Sea comes from Russia, Crimea, and all the way through Turkey out to the Mediterranean. That's Russia's access to the Mediterranean. So
Mm-hmm.
in the event that something was to happen between Russia and NATO, they would have Syria as a access to the Mediterranean Sea.
Ah, got you.
So that's why there's such a vested interest in Russia safeguarding Syria, because if they don't, if they Syria is the only naval port that Russia has around the world. They don't have a naval port anywhere else. All the other naval ports they've already closed up and got rid of.
Okay. Now they want access to the Mediterranean Sea to ship goods across the world. Am I? I'm guessing.
Not to ship goods, but to protect themselves from being enclosed from the rest of the world, because NATO, Turkey, and the rest of the NATO states, the Baltic states, can close off the Black Sea from having access to the Mediterranean Sea. And then um, you factor in some of the other the Pacific. The Pacific is pretty much been swallowed up by the United States. So if Russia wants to get out of the Baltics, then they would have to come through the Black Sea and come through the Mediterranean. Now, what's been going on between Russia and Turkey is that they've been brokering deals behind the scenes, and as a NATO partner, they've already kicked out the Germans. Turkey has already kicked out the Germans. So the Germans used to have a military base or military access to Turkey, but that's been over and done with since 2016, since the coup attempt. So
Okay.
Germany is gone out of Turkey. The British are gone out of Turkey as well. And the United States do not have access anymore to Turkey's airspace. So they can't fly their jets out of there. They can't fly their logistics out of there.
Okay. Now,
now Turkey is becoming a more friendly to Russia, because it's in their best interest to have this Blue Stream pipeline come from Russia into Turkey into Europe. That makes Turkey a strategic partner or a strategic hub for logistics as well as energy. They become an energy hub, which is something that they don't have. Now, Syria and Russia signed an agreement earlier this year to renew the military agreement for the naval port, which is Tartus. And Tartus is the naval port that Russia uses in Syria. And they signed a 99-year lease on the port. So that's why the Americans, the United States, wants to kick out the Russians from Syria by taking down Assad, the Syrian government.
and Assad is Russian friendly.
Assad is the legitimate government of Syria.
Okay. Now, looking at Turkey and the pathway of the Black Sea, which leads to the Mediterranean, Istanbul is right there. So it's pretty hard to get your, well, I would say anyone that's trying to go from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean in terms of shipping goods, it could be pretty expensive because you got to go right through Istanbul. Now, for Turkey, Syria, and Russia, from what you're saying, Russia is making a lot of, not I want to say a lot, but a few good chess moves, because if they're brokering deals with Turkey in the background and have a good foothold in Syria, then that entire area from the Baltic states to from the Middle East to going into Europe, they can have free clearance.
Are you saying in regards to Russia, or are you saying in
Yes,
regards
Russia.
to Turkey?
Russia. In
Well,
regards to Russia.
Russia doesn't have any goods that they need to send out, right? I mean, other than energy, they're an energy empire. That's their bread and butter.
Mm.
The other half of their income comes from weapons manufacturing. So they're number two in terms of weapons manufacturing in comparison to the United States. But that doesn't
Really?
necessarily mean that they need. Yeah, they sell a lot of weapons. As a nation state, because a lot of countries that did not align with the United States fell back to the Soviet Union, and they maintained those partnerships with even after the Soviet Union collapsed. You have places like Serbia, um, which is in Europe, and then you have the rest of the Middle East, as well as the Baltic states, um, or I should say the Caucasus states, such as Azerbaijan and Armenia and those places. And even
Mm.
just recently, last week, the United States, CIA, and MI6 out of the UK um, forged a coup against the Armenian government. So my point in saying all this is that a lot of those Central Asian and Eurasian countries are very dependent upon Russian manufacturing, as well as Russian energy, because they don't have access to any other resources within the area.
Okay. And you say you're talking about Armenia, Azerbaijan, I'm guessing Georgia also.
Yeah, these are all former Soviet Union states.
Mm. Oh my. I did not know Russia was the second biggest. Okay. Learn something new again. Now,
Mhm.
I'd like to switch gears to this China Belt and Road Initiative, or their
Mhm.
attempt to reestablish the ancient Silk Road. I saw, I forgot where I saw the video. I think it was China News Network. They were talking about it. No, actually, I lied. It was the Caspian Report. He
Mhm.
was talking about the whole initiative, how it's the Belt and Road Initiative is a conglomerate of both land and sea roads and ports that follow the old Silk Road. Now he put forth, I guess you said, claim that this initiative, well, other countries such as India and Russia, the United States, see this as a threat to their uh, uh, cash cow, to 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 their income. Because for one, America, that whole sea area, the South China Sea, Philippine Sea, America's Navy, you, I want to say you have to pay America in order to use those waterways to get your goods across different countries.
Mhm.
Am I right in saying that?
Um, yes and no, because it's not so much that they're paying, but it's more about the U.S. wants to control all of the logistics avenues that anybody else would use, and
Okay.
because those avenues that China uses to ship their goods out is their lifeline to surviving, for from an economic standpoint. So if the United States decides that they want to block up, um, those logistic arteries, then that can cause a problem for China, and China's not going to go for that, because that means they can't get their oil in, and they can't get their goods out. And if they can't get their goods out and they can't get their oil in, then that's a declaration of war. And this is what happened in Japan, um, in the World War II, because the United States cut off their um, their access to oil in the Pacific, which is why Japan came back and bombed
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor.
Okay. Okay. Now with India, he was saying India's and China's relationship is not the best. And what China's MO is when they conduct a project overseas in another country, they like to send their own workers there to make sure the project gets done properly and to cut down on embezzlement, money embezzlement by the hosting country. So one of the ports will be, I forgot where in India, but in India and Sri Lanka, but in India. So they will have to they would send Chinese there to build out the whole project. And India will see this as somewhat an economic threat because here you have a foreign entity building a port in your country that your own people can't work on, will not be hired to work on. And yeah.
Right. That's the problem that they have in Africa, right? So Chinese are coming in and building up a lot of the infrastructure that Africa needs, but a lot of the initial build out was being done by Chinese and not by Africans. But part of this problem that Africans have is that they have a literacy problem, right? They don't have the engineering skill set as well as the acumen to actually do the work themselves. Now you have some people that may have some skill set, right? But you need master plumbers and gas fitters, master electricians, master IT people. And Africa doesn't have those type of human resources available because they did not develop those people when they at the time that they needed to, because most of African countries are just now getting out of colonialism. They're just now breaking ties with the European colonial master.
Now that's what you just said was my whole gripe with Africa in terms of allowing China to come in and build up the infrastructure. On the surface, it may sound peaches and roses. Hey, we're getting highways. Hey, we're getting buildings. Hey, we're getting bridges. We're getting all this stuff. And like you said, on the initial build out, it's just Chinese that are doing this work. But what happens when repairs need to be done? What happens when further build out needs to be done? You're going to have to call the Chinese to come back over to continue this these type of projects and to repair the projects that they did.
So that was initially the problem years ago, but now in the last administration, especially since Obama, they have set up statutes where any Chinese conglomerate that comes into Africa has to have 1/3 employment of African people. So the build out from Kenya and Djibouti, as well as even what's the other state? Zimbabwe. A lot of that has been African labor. So it has been a lot of African labor laying down the railroad, the piping, and all of the gas fitting and stuff like that, because they've had to train a lot of African men to do this work because it has to be transferred. So in the same way that China has policies of intellectual property transfer in China for American businesses and European businesses that want to do business in China, Africa is starting to set up the same policies now.
Okay. Well, hey, good. I give a hand clap to them, because when I first heard all of this, I had a big bone to pick because it just didn't seem logical. But now they're working with logic. Now with this China Belt and Road Initiative, he was on the Caspian Port was also saying that Russia, some of the roads that China plans to build out will interfere with some of the former Soviet Union Russian states. And with Russia's whole big plan is to bring those Soviet Union states back into Russia's control. Now you have China that could interfere with that plan, because if you have a shipping route going in and out of your country, and you have another country that wants to bring you into their control for you to prosper, that's you. Each country has to weigh their options. That's what he was saying in terms of the Russia and China and the Belt and Road Initiative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because those are former Soviet states, as well as those states were very dependent upon Moscow to deliver those same goods that China plans on pushing through their, backyard, so to speak, or their soft underbelly. And that's something that Russia needs to work out with the former states, because they have something called the Eurasian Union, which is basically a remake or a revamp of the Soviet Union without the hammer and sickle that they used to use on the flag.
And the what was it again? The Eurasian Union, the Eurasian Union.
Yes.
And this would
Eurasian Economic Union, should be EEU, Eurasian Economic Union. So it's more about business rather than military posture, right?
A Eurasian Economic
Union. Yep.
Okay. And I'm looking at the states. Well, I mean, not the states, the countries that this will engulf. Obviously, Russia, and we're looking at Kazakhstan,
Turkmenistan.
Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. Oh my goodness, I don't know how to pronounce it correct. Kyrgyzstan. Almost all the stands. Okay. Now, our North and South Korea. Oh, Kim Jong-un. And his name is continuously slipped my mind. Let's see here. I want to get his name right. I don't want to disrespect anyone. Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae. Oh my goodness. Moon Jae-in.
Yes.
Is that Moon Jae-in?
Yes.
They've met earlier this week, and they're set to broker out peace deals. And for the record, I'll claim ignorance on this. I did not know Japan. I knew Japan's close proximity to China. I knew that, but I don't know why I did not know Japan's close proximity to South Korea.
Yeah, they occupied both the Koreas, and they occupied China during World War II. What they did to China is unforgivable, on top of the fact that to this very day, the Japanese will not apologize for what they did to China, South Korea, North Korea, and the Philippines, as well as Cambodia and Vietnam. They won't apologize. So once a year, or during the anniversary of the liberation of China and the rest of the Southeast Asian states, the fact that the Japanese president or prime minister won't apologize, what happens is cyber attacks start to happen against Japan's infrastructure as well as their private entities.
So China and Japan is like a larger North and South Korea.
Not necessarily. It's more about Japanese imperialism against the rest of the Asian Pacific.
Okay. How can they let? Okay, I think I'm gonna answer my question while I'm thinking about it. But Japan, compared to China, is not, on the surface, is not. When you look at it, like, oh, China got Japan beat, but at that time in history, we have to think at that time in history, Japan was more advanced than China and the other Asian countries. So that was probably why I'm thinking that they were able to exert their their imperialism on these countries.
Right, and they also didn't have the internal conflict that the rest of the countries that they occupied did. Right, China had multiple insurrections inside their states between the late 1800s all the way up until 1965 or 1968. They had many resurgencies happening. So it's hard to fight an outside threat when you have internal conflict, which is one of the reasons why the United States has a problem going to war, because you have all of this racial conflict that they haven't resolved yet.
Racial conflict and this feminism and social justice. Oh my God.
Well, racial conflict in the sense that African Americans or Black Americans are interwoven into the fabric of American legacy, right? It's how do you stand up your country by oppressing the people that's in it, while at the same time fighting conflict on the outside?
Ah, good point. Good point.
You don't want to you don't want to have African Americans in your military and you're beating down Black people inside America while you're fighting wars abroad. And they have access to F-16, F-22 Raptor, M4 rifles and TOW missiles. That can be very lethal because they can turn all those weapons against you.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because and America don't want to sing, okay, the pot calling the kettle black, but I forgot who said this. That's one reason why they won't. America will not. I don't want to say go to war because that's too broad, or not too broad. That's such a last just effort, but force some type of rule on African states that defy them.
You mean African Americans or Africa, the continent?
The continent.
Well, it's out of their sphere of influence, right? For a long time, Africa has not been a part of the United States foreign policy, which is what brought AFRICOM, African Command, to the forefront, because they didn't have a strategy for Africa at all. And in their absence of dealing with Africa, they were too busy dealing with the Middle East and too busy dealing with Latin America, where they forgot about Africa as a whole. And that vacuum of power that was left behind by the European colonialists allowed China and North Korea and the rest in India to come in and kind of gobble up the sphere of influence.
Yes. Whew. I'm just thinking like I was just thinking on topic for a minute. Okay, Kim Jong-un and South Korea peace talks. The peace talks they're attempting to iron out due to the historic summit. These two leaders of their respective countries. One of the agreements is I've heard someone quote, I think it was a news outlet quote, Kim Jong-un is saying he will give up his nukes, if America promises not to invade. Now, my question to you, Mike Vincent, how likely will America promise not to invade North Korea?
When has America ever held up a promise or a treaty?
So, in other words,
they told Gorbachev, before the Soviet Union collapsed, that we won't move NATO 1 inch to the east as an agreement, as a promise. However, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, they've moved all the way up to Russia's border. I mean, literally within a half an hour to St. Petersburg and Moscow. So they've broken all these agreements and they've broken all these treaties that they've had. I mean, they've had 600 treaties with the Native Americans, and they've broken every last treaty.
Mm. So in other words, Kim Jong-un ain't giving up a single nuclear bomb.
He'll give up his nukes as a final piece to the United States leaving the Pacific. That's the agreement.
Now, how likely is that?
They have to leave first in order for him to give up his nukes.
Now, we both know, and everybody listening to this, America ain't leaving that area because they have bases in Japan. They have bases in
Okinawa.
Right. They have bases in the Philippines. They have a submarine station in Guam. America is not shutting down those places. America is not. They go ahead.
No, well, I mean, they may not give it up, but if the whole objective is to get him to give up his nukes, then you're gonna have to give up something. Either you're gonna have to give billions of dollars back to the North Koreans that you seized in U.S. banks on Wall Street, or you're gonna have to give up your troops. But if you don't give up your troops, then it's of no use to Kim Jong Il to give up his weapons. Why do that?
Right, and that's exactly why do that if you know this country who has a very deep track record of breaking any and all peace agreements or anything else they sign. Why would I give them my nukes if I know without a shadow of a doubt that you're gonna backslide? That don't seem logical to me in terms of the chess move on the chessboard.
Well, you have to look at it from multiple areas, right? So if you're China, you want North Korea to have a deterrence to keep the United States from overrunning onto Chinese, Chinese heavy populations in South or Northeast China or East China, right? So North Korea acts as a buffer to China in that regard. But if you're South Korea, you probably want to see those weapons be dismantled because they're only about less than 30 miles away from the capital of South Korea. True. And one weapon could wipe out half of their population. So there's varying interests in this. And there's really no reason for the United States to even be there at this point because South Korea could fight their own battle at this point. But the only reason that Kim Jong, the leader of North Korea, has his nuclear weapons is because the United States is there.
Now, what role does China play in all of this?
China has a military agreement with North Korea that if they are attacked by a foreign power, they have to step in and assist. In the same way that Russia has a military agreement with
China,
with Syria.
Oh, Syria! Yeah.
If they are attacked, they have a right to come in. And Syria has a military agreement with Iran that if they are attacked by a foreign power, that they have a right to come in and assist, and vice versa.
Okay, now Korea has a military agreement with China. If, let's say, North Korea is attacked by an outside entity, China comes in. Will China bring in Russia in terms of bringing in more muscle?
North Korea and Russia share a border together as well.
Yes.
It's not that big of a border, but it's a border. So Russia already put down troops at the border in case something does happen, because Trump had said, in a tweet that Rocket Man, which is the North Korean leader, that they were going to send warships to North Korea and bomb it, which was about 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. So Russia and China both formed all their major forces to the borders to make sure that if something was to happen, that they're going to take action too. So they have these agreements in place, but the idea is to get North Korea not to detonate a nuclear weapon, because if they do and it doesn't fire off correctly, or there's a mishap, you can take out China, you can take out Russia inadvertently, right? So they have a very heavy interest in making sure that things go smooth, so that there aren't any accidents that happen on the way down.
Okay. Goodness. It's a situation where it's a situation where it's okay, if this then that, but you can't do this, so do that, but you can't do that. It's a an impasse. Everybody's at an impasse, and everybody's looking to see who's gonna do what.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now let's go all the way back to the Middle East and our beloved country, Syria. Oh, Syria. What options? Now I know Syria is fighting. Syrian government is fighting 2 or 3 battles. They're fighting outside forces, multiple outside forces that are trying to take over the country for economic reasons. They're fighting the jihadists in the country. They're trying to overthrow the country.
The jihadists are actually mercenaries. So
Okay.
they're mercenaries trained by the United States and as well as the British.
So they're fighting them to prevent them from overthrowing the country. And they have to put up these continued missile attacks. And anybody know military strategy, nobody's going to fire missiles just to blow up some dirt. They're planned precision missile attacks that disrupt vital necessities in your country. What options do they have?
Who are you referring to? Syria?
Yes, Syria.
So they have missile batteries in place, surface-to-air missile batteries in place, as well as mobile artillery units in place to counter some of these measures. But when you're getting jumped by multiple powers, Israel, Britain, U.S., France, and even some of the Arab states like Jordan and Saudi Arabia, it can be quite difficult to counter one or too many attacks like that. You can only take so much before you end up surrendering, and which is what they want Assad to do, is surrender. But he can't surrender. That's just impossible,
So he got to keep on fighting.
Russia has to step in and basically assist as much as possible. Now, the deployment last week was that Russia has supplied S-300 surface-to-air missile batteries for Syria. So they started delivering them last week. I think it's about 40 batteries.
Okay. 40 surface-to-air. Okay.
Surface-to-air missile batteries. So these S-300 units were supposed to be supplied to Iran back in 2007. However, there was an embargo on arms shipments to Iran by the United Nations Security Council, which prevented Iran from receiving them from Russia. So these batteries, or these surface-to-air missile batteries that they're receiving now in Syria, are originally Iranian, meant for Iran deployment. So there was an agreement between Syria and Russia to deliver surface-to-air missiles in 2010. However, the United Nations Security Council vetoed, or not vetoed, but they ruled against arms shipments to Syria. This was a year before the jihadi terrorists decided to come in.
Okay. Hey, remember a couple years ago when Syria wasn't so big in the news, in world news. The
Mhm.
whole situations in Islamabad and Tehran, it, it it seems as if, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you look at the news on the major news networks,
Mhm.
okay, you're presented with this. Oh, we have to go to is well, we had to go to Islamabad to kidnap so such and such. Oh, the leader of Tehran is doing this such and such. Oh, Pakistan op- opium field such and such. Now we're in Syria. It's like every couple of years is something new, but that something new is still within the Middle East. It's almost like a okay, here go the ball, here go the ball. Okay, okay, look, it's something else. It's something else. So Americans can't really pin down. Okay, wait, can't pin down and say, okay, wait a minute. You keep throwing me off. You know what? Okay, what's really going on? You know, let us know what's going on because you keep throwing us off. First is this, then it's this.
Right. So there has to be justification for actually occupying these countries, right? I mean, before it was about Iraq having weapons of mass destruction. Then it became um, Iran was developing a nuclear weapon. Then it became Lebanon had Hezbollah, which is considered to be on the U.S. terrorist list um, by CIA. Um, and then you have Libya, which was Gaddafi was terrorizing his own people. So we had to come in there and do something, even though Gaddafi gave up his nuclear weapons to the United States as a deal, and that wasn't enough. So they went in there and bombed them anyways after he gave them up, which is why North Korea won't give up their nuclear weapons because they saw what happened to Saddam and they saw what happened to Gaddafi in Libya.
And I don't blame them. I mean, because the country is showing you what as the old saying goes: if someone show you who they are, believe them. And America has shown who they are. So on again on the chessboard of geopolitics, I don't blame North Korea in not giving up their nuclear weapons, and I believe any other countries can't blame them either.
Exactly. I mean, Israel has 200 nuclear warheads in their arsenal, and they're not even complying with, you know, the NPT, which is the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is the safeguard behind anyone having nuclear technology or weapons. They're not complying with it, whereas North Korea was actually complying with it up until 2003, and
Mm.
then they stopped. Um, However, same thing with Saddam. He complied. You know, the rest of the countries complied with the NPT, but the problem is Israel has not. And if Israel has weapons that can reach anywhere within Africa, anywhere within Europe, and anywhere within Central Asian states or the Central Asian region, yeah, you would want some kind of deterrence too. If you're Iran, if you're Syria, if you're Libya, or you're Egypt. Egypt has some weapons as well. We don't know what they have. We just know that they have some powerful weapons that they're not going to give up either, because Israel's not going to give up their weapons. South
Obviously,
Africa, South Africa used to have nuclear weapons too, but we don't really know if we know that they've dismantled their nuclear weapons program, but we don't know what else they have as a backup or for redundancy purposes if something was to happen. Um, South Africa used to be a nuclear power themselves.
because you have to protect yourself. You have to protect yourself and your citizens. Because if you don't protect yourself or your citizens are gonna uh, uh, riot against the government and say, "Hey, why aren't you protecting us?" And then if you
Well, the
protect,
citizens, well, the citizens don't know what kind of nuclear arsenal that you have. That's all top secret classified information. They would never know that. But the objective is, from a military standpoint, that this is an assurance that if you decide to invade me, from a military standpoint, there are consequences that I will retaliate with these so-called um, weapons of mass destruction.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of why North Korea invested so much time and energy into building nuclear weapons and letting so many people starve to death. Because I'll let if you're the leader of North Korea, you're saying I'll let a few hundred people starve to death, but I need to have these nuclear weapons in place, this program in place, as an assurance that if the United States decides to fly their B-52 bombers and their F-35 fighter jets over my country and bomb me again and try to do a precision strike, I'm gonna set this mother effer off.
You're right.
And you ain't getting nothing. I'll take everybody else out with me.
Right. And like I said, you have to protect yourself. What this you gotta put your big boy pants on and protect. Hey, you the leader. You are the leader. You gotta protect yourself. Now I was going to ask you this, but now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure because it is a NATO state. But it would seem to me that Turkey and Syria would broker out some type of deal to stop the worst possibilities from going on in that area of the world. But they probably won't, because Turkey, like you said, Turkey is a NATO state.
Not a genuine one, but they're a NATO state.
Am I right in saying that that is what is preventing Turkey from shaking hands with Syria and saying, okay, this has gotten out of control. We need to stop this. Let's make a deal.
They've done that already. So they have something called the Astana Forum in Astana, Turkmenistan, I think it is. They've had a military forum on these matters. So Turkey, Iran, Russia, and Syria. So the four of them have been sitting inside Astana having these talks about how to come to a armistice on Syria itself. So that's already been over and done with in February, I think. They've had multiple forums, I think, like twice a month for the last 6 months in Astana. So the Astana talks have already taken place. Now the idea is to just finish off the rest of the work that needs to be done in Syria, which is the Kurds who are occupying the north, who are considered to be a threat to Turkey, and Turkey has since invaded Afrin and the other northern states of Syria to remove the Kurds out. However, the Kurds are embedded with U.S. Marines so that Turkey cannot bomb the Kurds because U.S. Marines are there. But Turkey is basically saying, we don't care if you have U.S. Marines there, and we don't care if you're a NATO ally with us. We'll bomb you too.
Mm. And if they do that, then Big Daddy U.S. gonna say, hey, they're gonna plaster all over the news. Turkey has killed X amount of Marines, and we don't know why. Which will give another.
They've already done it.
Oh my God!
They've already bombed some U.S. Marines allegedly in the battle. Whether or not they're Blackwater contractors or Halliburton contractors, we don't know who exactly these people were, but they have been U.S. and British Marines and special forces have been killed in the last 6 weeks or so.
I get the feeling that geopolitics is shaking hands with people, creating I was about to say contracts, but creating agreements, living up to those agreements until they're expired, then shaking hands with somebody else, making agreements, living up to those agreements until they expire, or getting out them agreements if it suits you best too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not
there's no such thing. There's no such thing as friends, permanent friends. You just have permanent interests in limited partners.
Permanent interest and limited partners.
Mm-hmm.
Outstanding. Oh man. And now that I'm learning all this, now that I'm looking at these YouTube videos and getting uh, uh, more of a trickle of information, more of a trickle of understanding, and I want to emphasize trickle because this is a lot of information to take in. Now that I'm understanding, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, it isn't so cut and dry as you think. I imagine the people that are not privy to this information, that are not, I don't want to say, I don't want to say privy to this information, that don't take the time to listen or read and have a just a general working thought knowledge of what's going on. This, if things go east, this can affect them. They won't be able to say, "Hey, okay, this is about to happen. Let me prepare and let me do this." You understand what I'm saying?
Right, they're not woke as they say they are. Right,
Mm.
everybody uses the term woke, but they're not really woke to that extent to understand that Africa is going to be the new battleground in the next 10 years or so. So the idea of black people going back to Africa and all this other stuff, that you may not even have that opportunity unless you start preparing, ahead of time.
Well, now, what do you mean by Africa? What in what way Africa will be the new battleground?
Because the battle is going to shift from the Middle East into Africa. Because
North.
China is in Africa, and has vested interest in the resources of Africa. So, as Europeans are so dependent upon Africa for their survival, and China has so many investments in there, um, the United States doesn't really have um, a true game plan for Africa. So the objective would be to just come in and destroy Africa in the same way they did to the Middle East. It would be nothing for them to walk in and bomb Libya and no other African state. There's 55 African states in Africa, and not one of them came to the rescue of Libya. Not
Oh,
one.
not you're right. Not even a so-called friend, Arab friends. Like you said, there's permanent interests, but limited partners. But not even Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco. No, Morocco iffy. But yeah, not even they friends. They Arab friends came in. Help them. You got a point there.
It was the Arabs that set them up in the first place.
Goodness gracious.
You have to remember Qatar spent a lot of money funding, the jihadists that were in the country stirring up the trouble.
Okay. Question.
Mm-hmm.
When you say they spent a lot of money, do they pay people directly or like pay uh organizations to say, hey, we want this done, we're gonna give you this amount of money if you do it?
Right, they're terrorist organizations. So
Okay.
the objective for the groups were that if for every government you take down, you get $1 million, right? $1 million US.
Mm.
If you're a poor person and you know how to use a Kalashnikov, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a high, you have to ask yourself, what would you do in that situation? Now, a lot
Yeah.
of these guys really didn't have any reason to tear down Libya or any other Arab state, but they were funded by Saudi Arabia, by Qatar, by UAE, by Kuwait, these other these GCC, the Gulf Coast Council, um, to tear down these governments. Tunisia was the first one to go down, and then you had Libya, and then you had Egypt, and then you had um, Syria and Iraq, and then you had Lebanon was on the list, and then Yemen and Sudan got involved as well. So what I'm saying is that these jihadi entities are all funded by Arab states and U.S. aid as well. U.S. aid plays a role in that stuff. So your tax dollars goes over to funding, these jihadi terrorists. And truth be told, that the first people they went after in Libya were the black people. They massacred those black people.
Now, why did they do that?
They don't like black people for the most part. I mean, there was an objective to get rid of black people out of Libya. Gaddafi was the only the workers. Gaddafi was the only Arab leader in modern history to apologize for slavery.
Okay, you mean the Arabs? I don't know why I think you were talking about the U.S., but the Arabs. Okay.
Yeah, there was 50 to 60,000 black people in Libya. They went in there and they massacred those people. And this was in 2012, 2013, 2012, 2013.
So it didn't matter if who the black person was. It was okay. Hey, you black.
If you were from the city Tawarga, which is in Libya, in the south of Libya, they went in there and they massacred those people. So you imagine, a place like Chicago being overrun by terrorists, and they just going from house to house, lining people up and just blowing their heads off. Men, women, and children. They didn't spare anybody. And then you take into consideration how they killed some of these people too. They dragged them. They had black men hanging upside down by their ankles, being dragged by pickup trucks, women being dragged by their breasts.
Goodness gracious!
Just a whole lit. Yeah, just disgusting stuff. And you have to ask yourself as a black American, what would you do if you were in that situation? See, we in America, we're not prepared for any of this type of stuff.
Yeah, we tend to glamorize and Wakandanize things.
Right. We say we woke, but you're not really woke. You're not really ready for this type of situation to pop off, because this could happen at any given time for you. You're not even prepared from a logistics standpoint. Food, water, and medicine. You have no place to go.
And that's why I'm so against this women being integrated at a high rate into the military. You don't understand what war. There's no fairness in war. The enemy's not going to be fair. Oh, she's a woman. Our moral is no. They're gonna look at what uniform you got on, and you're gonna catch this bullet. That's and a lot of women don't understand that even the women that are in the military, in some of these ground forces, such as the Marines and the Army, even they say, "Hey, this is a stressful situation. It's so stressful that it will make you as a woman independent. You will not be able to have children because of the high level of stress of some of these situations that they went into already, let alone something big pop off. Oh my God. So when people glamorize these things, like, you don't understand. You just saying, oh, it's equal if we go in the military. No, you will get equally killed. And on top of that, you will get more men killed, because in America, men, oh, this is a woman, I gotta protect her.
You've been socialized right in a way that it's not compatible with military strategy.
Right. It's not compatible with war. It's not. So American troops will get dogged out there if they let too many women in these ground force branches of the military. And a lot of people don't understand that. Now, with Gaddafi, when he apologized to black people about the Arab slave trade, was that in his best interest to do that because what he planned on doing?
He wanted to include black people as a part of the new strategy for Africa, which was a part of the gold dinar, right? So the gold dinar was their way of strengthening Africa as a single block. a banking perspective. So that if you wanted to do business with Africa, you had to use the gold dinar, which is similar to how we talk about Bitcoin. That was going to be their currency, and because it was made of gold, and it was like a bullion, then what that would do would it would increase the value of African states and African people as a whole. And France and Britain couldn't handle the idea of a new African currency coming into place and displacing Europeans, the euro, because Europe is completely dependent upon Africa. If they don't get their resources out of Africa, they're going to die.
Goodness. And that's been going on. People don't understand that's been going on for millennia. Even before
since capitalism has come into place. Since capitalism come into place, that's been the modus operandi, right? To have all these resources come back to me at very little expense. And France, as a European state, is completely integrated into African economics because they need it. They're very dependent upon it. And if you have the Chinese encroaching upon France territories or France states, then what happens to France capitalism or France's capitalism?
It starts
to wane. It starts to go away. And if France can't maintain themselves within the European Union, then what's the point of them being in the European Union?
Right, because right now, aren't they already a what you call them a Club Med country?
For the most part, I mean, France doesn't really produce anything that anybody really needs at this point.
Hence Brexit.
They call it Frexit, right? So France's version of the exit strategy out of the European Union.
That don't sound too appealing, Frexit.
Well, it's going to happen at some point. I mean, the Chinese are coming. They've already integrated most of their construction and infrastructure rebuilding within Africa, within some of these French states or these French colonial states. So where do we fit in this as African Americans? We really don't have a foreign policy because we don't have a domestic policy either.
Okay, now remember when we talked about how African Americans being so integrated in the U.S. Military structure. If this comes to fruition and, Africa is the next battleground, and I mean sub-Saharan Africa, and people going there trying to fight over land that's, it's not theirs. African Americans in the military in Africa trying to fight Africans. That's not going to be a good position for America.
Yeah, it puts America at odds because they don't really bring anything to the table, right? So they kind of do trade, but they don't really bring anything to the table. Where you take the Chinese, for instance, or you take the Russians, for instance. The reason why Africa has satellites is because Gaddafi paid for them when he was alive, so that they wouldn't be dependent upon European satellites. But what the Russians did was they offered their satellites to Africa when Gaddafi was in power at a very cheap rate. So basically, Africa has its own permanent satellites in space right now because the Russians and the Chinese have offered the logistics aspect of it by putting satellites in space for them.
Okay, and the satellite, well, obviously sound like that's a good deal. Well, that's good for telecommunications and that part. Okay,
weather satellites, global positioning systems, right? So Africa has, if Africa needed Google Maps or some other TomTom maps or whatever mapping system, they can now use those satellites that they have up there.
Okay. Now, we okay, we as African Americans in this geopolitical chessboard, you're right. We don't have any domestic or foreign policy. We so bent as our whole, not all, of course, not all of us, but too much that it shapes the narrative of us. But we're so bent on, oh, um, alpha, beta, omega, oh,
Sigma.
yeah, all this, and these women, oh, see, got to understand the metaphysical aspect. See, this, all this bull that that don't have nothing to do with the reality of survival, with the reality of what are we going to do in these situations. And again, I go back to the trickle. I'm slowly learning. Learning is trickling in. All these guys that talk about the end, some of them are good guys. Some of these guys are good guys, but they keep talking about women. How to get a woman. What you should do.
Game.
Right, game. It's, bro, that's your whole world. That ain't got nothing. If that's your whole world, then I believe the true aspect of a man is power. And this geopolitical chessboard is one way to gain power. Women do not have a pawn on this chessboard at all. They're a byproduct. And I'm not going to apologize to any woman looking at this, but you are a byproduct in the man's world, a true man's world of gaining and establishing power.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
And you know, if we were politically organized, and I've talked about this before on other hangouts, you would need to latch on to a bigger political ally, right? So remember we said before, you have permanent interests but temporary partners, limited partners, and part of the strategy for African Americans are we latching on to the African Union? Are we making partners and allies in the Middle East in terms of from a business standpoint, right? What do we manufacture that can sustain Black people as a whole, right? You know, you think about the military industrial complex when you're talking about building armored personnel carriers and surface to air missile batteries and even rifles for that matter. Are we manufacturing any of these goods to our best, to our advantage for our global best interest? No, we're not doing any of that stuff. Are we focusing on the cryptocurrency aspect by moving away from the dollar and getting on to an alternative currency so that we can reassure ourselves in having a stake in this new geopolitical chessboard? No, we're not doing any of that stuff.
Now, just to piggyback on what you just said, Haiti, I don't know where these talks are, if they're still in talks, but Haiti was trying to get into the African Union. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say Haiti joins the African Union. Haiti is, if that happens, Haiti is a direct springboard for African Americans to funnel money and money into Africa.
It also provides a security umbrella for Haiti as well, because now you don't have a foreign first world power like the United States occupying Haiti.
Then you got Jamaica, which is not too far off the coast of Haiti. So that, like,
well, Jamaica is a member of
the Commonwealth, right?
Well, not of the Commonwealth. Their debt has been bought out by China, so they're basically an ally to China at this point.
Okay. And like we said last week, Haiti has resources. Haiti has resources, and it is a black country. And again, African Americans, we are rumored to be the richest group of Africans on the planet, or black people. I want to say it, black people, Africans on the planet.
Melanated people.
And you have Haiti right there, sitting right there with all these resources.
And they can't get it out the ground because they don't have the human resource to actually come to those strategic ends to make those goals meet. And that's where you might have heard me talk about this before. That's why I talk about the educated brothers, cultivating young black males into having them be have the skill set to actually exploit these resources. But when I bring this up, people think that I'm just talking crazy and I don't know what I'm talking about. But how are you going to get these resources out of the ground if you got a whole bunch of people talking about do-rags and swag?
Oh my God. It's laughable. It is. It's laughable. Like, dude, do you realize what we can do? Oh man, see, we ain't gonna get nowhere if the black woman is not with us. Man, fuck her. She will come along. Trust and believe. She will come, because listen, they are not stupid. And when I say fuck, I mean fucking for the time being. They not stupid. They saying, okay, well, these black men, they getting real power. Next thing you know, you're gonna have all these YouTube channels popping up. Yes, the black woman always been behind the black men. They not stupid, man. They not stupid at all. So, don't focus. That's not. I'm looking at these maps of the world, and I'm looking. I'm like, okay, we got black people here, we got black people there, we got an entire continent full of black people sitting on only God knows how many resources. We have part of an island sitting on only God knows how many resources. We got all these black people in this country, and I'm gonna count Canada too, southern Canada, the parts of Canada right next to the border of the U.S. With all this money, you have this new asset class coming along with cryptocurrency that will allow you to move your money across borders. It's like, dude, we are moving into another era, and you talking about, like you said, do rags and swags.
And the thing is, this is the last go around, and I think Dr. Claude Hanson has talked about this as well. This is the last go around for black people. If you don't get it right now, between now and 2030, that's it. You're done.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. I think Search for Huru just had a video earlier today, just afternoon, talking about it's a wrap for black people.
Yeah, it's a wrap for black people in LA, right?
Yeah, it's a wrap.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but I saw that he was talking about Dash Dillinger put a hit on Kanye. Like, dude, you 44 years old, and you talking about this? It's like, come on, man.
But that's where black people are in the the global marketplace, in the geopolitical stratosphere. That's where they are.
God,
they rather talk about things that don't have any meaning at all. And when you start talking about geopolitics, they look at you like you're speaking a different language, because to them that doesn't mean anything. But if you're talking about Haiti having all these resources of oil and natural gas and gold and iridium and maybe even cobalt, for that matter, platinum, palladium, aluminum, in all these places. In Haiti, you're talking about a place that's sitting on trillions of dollars worth of minerals and resources that you could actually exploit, but because you don't have the wherewithal or the want to actually go the distance, somebody like Hillary Clinton's brother, Tony Rodham, It's actually in Haiti, stealing all the resources out of Haiti right now as we speak.
And I'm pretty sure if Black Americans go down to Haiti and say, "Hey, we gonna squash all the beef and oh my God, this make believe beef, whatever it is, and we see you as the same as us, the same race as us. Let's you know, get this money." I'm pretty sure. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm pretty sure a good chunk of them will say, "Hey, you talking about get this? Okay, let's know what's the plan." I'm pretty sure some of them will be on that level.
Are you saying from a woman's standpoint?
No, I'm talking about Haitians. Well, if Black Americans go down there and want to break bread with Haitians, because I mean we the same people. I'm pretty sure a good chunk of Haitians will say, "Okay." I'm not saying all Haitians, but when I say not all Haitians, I'm putting the political personnel into the camp of trying to go against it. But I'm pretty sure a good number of Haitians will work with Black Americans.
Mm-hmm. Well, Venezuela has offered their assistance. So Maduro, who's the president of Venezuela, has offered their assistance to Haiti already. So willing to take in Haitians, willing to help Haitians get their resources out of the ground, but the United States is blocking that. But what I was referring to was Black people being the drivers behind the grabbing of the resources and the exploitation of the resources out of the ground. Why aren't they the drivers of it? Well, you have a lot of Black people who don't know anything about environmental science. They don't know anything about mining and agriculture. They don't know anything about the geopolitics of it, to be the brokers between Haiti and the rest of the global society, or the global market, I should say. And then on top of that, you need some form of banking system in place, because Haiti has sanctions on it, which is why it's so poor in the first place.
Sometimes people talk about Marcus Garvey and say, "Well, he was this, he did this, he did." It's very easy to talk about somebody in hindsight, but what he did at the time he did it was so profound. What he had UNIA chapters in all these Black places, and each sharing revenue. That I'm not saying we need to go back to that, but that in essence is what we need. I'm not saying go back to the UNIA, but that in essence is what we need as Black people in these different countries, where we can talk to each other, again, break bread with each other, do business with each other, something that will circumvent the long establishments that could possibly form a blockade against what we're trying to do. We need to build our own infrastructure.
Right, and that's where you have things like the Chinese coming up with the SCO, which is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The Russians coming up with the Eurasian Economic Union, and you have the African Union. You have all these other the Organization of American States, which is all of Latin America and the Caribbean. Everybody else is organizing except for Black people in America. Then you would need some form of political body that can represent your best interests, not just on a national scale, but on a global scale. So you would need the political body to represent your best interests from a political standpoint. You would need your own currency, which would be the cryptocurrency, and you would need a security wing to safeguard your political and financial interests. For whatever reason, this is not being discussed on other people's platforms and other people's live streams. I don't get it personally, but you would need that. and you would need to set up a commonwealth of Negroes around these other continents as well as these other countries.
Just like China's doing, sending Chinese over to other countries and creating Chinatowns and operating that way.
Well, a major shift in the financial structure, right? You have the ability to have a blockchain setup now. Other countries didn't have that before, and other people didn't have that. During the 1930s and 40s and 50s and 60s, Martin Luther King, a blockchain to a Martin Luther King would have been profound, but he didn't have access to that. But now, you fast forward to today, and you say to yourself, well, we can leverage all of these instruments to our advantage, but we're just not organized to do so.
It's funny you say, black people say, in the past, I would say in the past, we need our own currency. Well, you got it now. Cryptocurrency. Thank you, Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever you are. You got it now. So what's the excuse? And that's what.
But it also has to be paired with something, right? So it has to be a cryptocurrency by itself doesn't really mean anything. It has to be paired with some kind of natural resource. And when you start thinking about natural resources, what do we manufacture?
Just like Venezuela's doing, pairing it with with oil.
Right, the petro, right? So the petro is their go-to currency. But now you're starting to see Zimbabwe come up with their own cryptocurrency in the last 30 days since March. Egypt is working on a cryptocurrency for their country. So I read something recently. Nigeria is working on a cryptocurrency. So
oh my God, if they do it, come on, like what like
yeah, what are we really discussing here from being woke, right? From the standpoint of being woke, what are we really doing?
It's like there's levels to being woke. Yeah, you black, okay, but come to this next level. After you get to that level, come to this other level, and the higher you go, the further you are from the ground of where you once were, the more you see, the more you see how messed up other people are in terms of their thinking. And the higher you become elevated, it's like, wow, if we could just do this, then this will happen. If we could just move 1 inch to the right, 1 inch to the right, this can have a chain effect.
And you don't have to actually go to war with anybody. You're talking about finding business. You're talking about finding global partners: China, Russia, India, South Korea, North Korea. North Korea is very welcoming to African Americans from all the reports I've been seeing.
North Korea.
You're talking about that's why Dennis Rodman's been going back and forth. That's why you see Roy Jones Jr. going in and out of Russia. They love black people.
I heard Dennis Rodman, but I didn't hear Roy Jones Jr. Oh man,
yeah, he's been welcomed. I think he has dual citizenship in Russia. I think Evander Holyfield has been welcomed over there as well. So it's just one of those things that you can't say that. Oh man, if I go over there, man, the leader of North Korea, he's going to hang me or he's going to do something drastic to me. No, that's not the case because we already have evidence of black people going over there.
God.
And you're talking about investing into these countries where their currency has been massively inflated. You're talking about bringing 10 G's with you and putting it into a growing ecosystem that is in its early stages. With this whole South Korea, North Korea talks happening, nothing but positive is going to come out of all this.
And with cryptocurrency, you can do it because I'm not saying it's not traceless, but it's easier than transferring money from your American bank either directly to North Korea or Russia, or even trying to funnel it between different banks and paying out that exorbitant amount of fees and transferring to North Korea or Russia, opposed to cryptocurrency, whatever cryptocurrency they trade it's popular in those areas of the world. Like you said, buy 10 G's of that. Go over there and say, I want to do business. I have this resource.
But you go over there as a group, not as an individual.
Right.
Right. You go in there as a group. Now we have stake in different continents and different areas of the globe where we have a seat at the table now.
And that's the chess game.
Exactly.
And it's
yeah,
funny.
I saw. Go ahead, brother.
It's funny because when you operate on the chess game, or on a chessboard, everything else that all these other black YouTubers argue about will come automatically. It will come to you. It will literally come to you if you just focus on the chessboard. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, what you actually took the words out of my mouth, but it's gonna weed out those who ain't really about nothing.
Yeah.
So it's gonna weed those people out. All of that loud talk and all that huffing and puffing and pounding on your chest and pounding on your keyboard, that ain't gonna mean nothing. That ain't gonna mean nothing, because now you're talking about private military corporations, a PMC. Black people having their own Blackwater and being able to lock down areas where we feel that we're insecure, and able to transfer. You don't even need a military convoy or anything like that to transfer your currency or your money, because you're talking about cryptocurrencies that are flying faster than the speed of light.
Oh yeah, man, you ain't lying, because you transfer cryptocurrency off an exchange to your to whatever. It's sitting there within a couple of minutes, and the only thing you got to pay is not even less than a couple pennies. And now you're talking about decentralized exchanges, where even if the centralized exchanges are hit, you can still go to decentralized exchanges and still keep doing your thing.
Exactly. Now everybody, everybody's device, their smartphones, their tablets becomes a part of the blockchain.
Right. Now, I just want to ask you this, because I know our economics chat is on Fridays, but where do you see cryptocurrency? Well, let me rephrase that. How do you see cryptocurrency? Man, where do you see cryptocurrency in this new paradigm change?
I think you're going to see a lot of nation states start to pair their resources with them. But from an individual standpoint, you're going to see a lot of people try to make their investments. We as Black people can't afford to operate as individuals. We got to operate as a group. So we practice the group economics. And the group economics would be for us to put some, 2% of our annual revenue into, or our annual income into, some form of crypto. We don't have to create our own, but to actually put something into one of these currencies in order to secure ourselves on a global market if we're going to compete. Now, the other part of that is, well, what are you going to pair your cryptocurrency up with? If you do get involved with it, well, we have to start manufacturing things. When you start doing the basic of manufacturing, whether it's cars, or you're talking about military hardware, these are I just saw a video this morning of South African military expo. They have an all Black woman military firm that works on. Yeah, it's amazing. All Black women firm. They work on surface to air missile deterrence, submarine warfare. These are Black women doing this. So when I hear people on certain platforms talk about, on certain live streams talk about, oh man, that ain't nothing to worry about, man. We got other things, and I'm scratching my head. I'm saying, look at these Black women on YouTube in South Africa, and they look good too. They're not no
no ratchet. Well, yeah,
they're not no bush bunnies.
Didn't some African women create a generator that can run off urine?
Yeah, they was in Nigeria.
Come on, like how many people could utilize that? Like, oh, only thing I gotta do is urinate in it. Okay,
Well,
many people.
yeah, it's biodegradable fuel. Because you can use the same thing with feces as well. You can do the same thing with feces. Um, yeah, I was looking at some stuff about China. You know, they're building exoskeletons. So all these people that was in wheelchairs, they're giving them these exoskeletons and they're walking around now.
Shoot, because I know I'm about to purchase me one, and really those exoskeletons, it goes to neuroplasticity. You keep using it out though. You got to work out also. You got to do training, high intensity training, but you keep using it, your body gonna be like, wait, okay, let me try this by myself without the exoskeleton. It's gonna try to walk again.
Well, the ones I saw had AI to them, right? So the AI was able to help mitigate going up and down stairs and things of that nature, taking that more complex step. Um, that's what the Chinese are doing. We only, I mean, the Russians are working on some stuff too, but um, that's just to make the point that that's what they're manufacturing. That's what they're looking at.
Well, Mr. Mike Vincent, I believe this has been another great geopolitics talk. I like geopolitics and economic chats. I'm not too high. I'm not too brushed up on the automation, so that's why I want other people to come in because I'm trying to learn this automation also. But man, this to be honest, I look forward to these geopolitics talks. This is amazing.
Well, I thought you all go over there on Saturdays on to the BGS hangout and get your politics over there.
Sometimes what I do is I go there and see what they're talking about because the BGS to say, well, what do y'all want to talk about? And sometimes somebody throws something weird out, like I don't know, something off the wall, and he'll say, "Huh, okay, I guess so if you want to." But then, with like you said, you say, "Let's talk about geopolitics." It'll go strong for about 15 minutes. Then it's morphed into how that affects swag and alphas. I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, there tends to be a lot of ADD.
So sometimes I go over there and gauge and see how serious this can be talked about. So yeah,
it's been a good chat. I guess my closing thoughts would be we'll look forward to the upcoming events happening. Israel bombed Syria this week. The overthrow of the Armenian president through a coup d'état.
I'm gonna read up on that. I'm gonna write that down. Okay. And of course, the continued attacks against Syria and just other general things that's going on in geopolitical landscape that you can't just say brush off.
Yep, the Yemen leader of the Houthi party was assassinated through a missile strike. I know we didn't get a chance to go through all that stuff, but that's all recent stuff that's happened. So,
you know what I do? So, a lot of the videos you send, I subscribe to the channels like Newsbud. I subscribe to. I subscribe to the Kaiser Report when you start sending his stuff in. But my subscriptions, my subscription section under my YouTube channel is chock full of videos. I'm like, good, because normally what happens, what it used to happen is, YouTube distincts yesterday's videos from today's videos from the other day's videos. Now I have to scroll down. I'm like, dang, that's all today's videos. So
well, yeah, what you can do is you can make a playlist for yourself and say geopolitics, and then you can keep adding those videos to your playlist, and you just go through it later, which is what I do.
okay, playlist, add all the videos that come in on my subscription if it's geopolitics. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Because I'm subscribed to CGTN. I guess that's the China group.
China Global Television Network.
Yeah, I got the Africa news. Sometimes the type of news they report is don't got nothing to do about nothing, but it's a hit and miss. The news, bud. Go ahead.
What were you saying? China news doesn't report what?
No, I'm talking about the Africa news channel.
Oh, the Chinese CGTN Africa.
No, there's a channel called Africa News.
Okay.
So it's like a world news, but from an African standpoint, and it talks about what's going on in Africa. And sometimes they put videos up, and it's like, okay, what's it got to do about something? But then yeah, I'm gonna do that playlist because it's a lot of videos.
It's everybody has an opinion, so it's hard to keep up with every single video. But like I said before, I've told you many times before, this stuff is dry. You have to sit through it and try to pick out the information that's going to be relevant to your, to your relevant. It's going to be relevant to what you want to discuss going forward. So,
yeah, because man, cryptocurrency. I used to be overwhelmed with the cryptocurrency videos. Me trying to get into to learn more cryptocurrency. But then as I went on with the videos, I learned, okay, well, this guy ain't talking about nothing. Okay, I can go to this guy to get some real relevant news. Okay, this guy ain't talking about. So I weeded out the real from the fake. So I think that's what's going to happen with this. Okay, well, that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. Another chat in the book. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Vincent. Also is one of your hosts. And with that said, thank you for watching. And on Wednesdays, every Wednesdays, our Geo-Politics Talk. I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right.